It's not gonna really be a rant or a tangent or anything, just a general thoughts video, kind of like with what I've done with Wolfenstein Youngblood, the first one anyway. Even though life at that point wasn't exactly the greatest, but I want to talk about the new Spider-Man game because I recently played it, and unlike most people, I actually reserved it because it's something I actually care about. Because Insomniac Games is known to make some really good games, especially way back in the day. The original Ratchet & Clank is still one of my favorites, and they even made Spyro the Dragon, which some people say is still holds up really well, despite the remaster taking away visual design changes that are not aesthetically pleasing to the eye, except what is Demon's Souls on PS5. Unlike a lot of people, I don't really care much for the Marvel Cinematic Universe or anything of the sort. The only thing I was remotely interested in is the multiverse one with, what was it, Miles Morales, some shit, with the post-credits scene having a reference to 60 Spider-Man, which is my favorite adaptation of it, and it's not just because of the memes and shit, like, it's actually pretty good. Some people would say that the Spider-Man show that was on Fox is pretty good, but that shit is some of the worst censorship ever conceived to man. Like, come on. Batman and X-Men can get away with that shit, but not Spider-Man? Like, what the fuck changed? Being a pretty big fan of Spider-Man and the Miles Morales game, even though that one was the launch of the PS5 and I won't complain about it for reasons I'll get into later, I consider Spider-Man to be a hell of a lot more engaging than the likes of God of War, and considering that be both, I have reasons to complain about him. And you could say there is gameplay in God of War, I'm not going to deny that, but walking forward, third-person over-the-shoulder combat like it's a mock Dark Souls game is not exactly gameplay to me. But people found it a hell of a lot more exciting to give it Game of the Year, and yes, Spider-Man at least had a lot more gameplay, even though it's fucking open world. And considering a lot of Spider-Man games before then, I think it's safe to say that Insomniac has nailed it, for the most part. There were things in there that kind of annoyed me, and not just because, oh my god, the police.
Fuck the police coming straight from the underground. A young nigga got it bad cause I'm brown.
Seriously, people are really retarded for complaining about that. The only things that really carried in that game were the horribly implemented side gameplay mechanics that just don't fit Spider-Man at all. Particularly playing as Mary Jane and Miles Morales before he got his own game. And yes, I know the game calls her MJ. Me calling Mary Jane MJ is like me calling zombies walkers. I don't do it. I hate it. It sounds gay. It's retarded. And I'm not going to call her that ever again. I'm calling her Mary Jane. If you don't like it, go fuck yourself. The gameplay in Spider-Man is really decent. Like, legit. Insomniac knows how to make games. They have. They always have. Sometimes they shit out a dud. But most times, they can really get it done. Like, legit. They're one of the last few legacy developers of Sony that is actually pretty decent. Even though some people still think Rift Apart is all that, but again, we'll talk about that later. So then, Miles Morales comes out, and to some people's surprise, there's some changes for better or worse. But at least that's just a side mission, so whatever. And then there's some other changes to the story that might not be to everyone's liking, and other changes that I'm not going to really talk about, but from what to remember from one of my good friends, there were at least not that many side gameplay and just keeping about the gameplay. The problem is that it was way too fucking short. It kind of felt like a standalone game that's not even full price, but it at least changed up the gameplay enough to be interesting, and you got to see Miles Morales in action that's not just from Spider-Man games when most of them were mediocre, or even from the films that people seem to associate with him now. And then we get to Spider-Man 2, a game that people are going to be complaining about for a long-ass time because it's only on PlayStation. I'm going to save that shit for later. I'm just going to talk about the game. I actually like the game, like I said. I genuinely liked playing for the game. I binged that shit, and I can't recall any other time where I actually binged through a new game and actually enjoyed it. For reasons that I enjoy something like DC League of Super Pets, and yes, I know this sounds really fucking arbitrary, just hear me out for a second. Its length isn't horribly long. You don't need to know the context of things prior, though it helps. It's got charm, humor, action, and even bits that you know you can take seriously, unlike a blue anthropomorphic hedgehog that always wants to spiel jokes, which is also why games like Sci 4 are ruined forever. And it's held under good hands, even though they can be kind of, well, messy about it at times. But I still enjoyed the game. I enjoyed the narrative that the game has to offer. And I was kind of surprised at some of the twists in the game, actually. And even the parts that some people might find controversial, mainly in terms of gameplay, aesthetics only, I can still enjoy it, for the most part. And I do feel that, with the exception of some changes, Spider-Man 2 does deliver in gameplay, whether you're playing as Peter, or Miles, or anything in between. The puzzles that people complain about because, oh my god, you know, puzzles in a game they can skip for a reason, I still enjoy those. And, kind of go on a side tangent for a second, but genuinely the best part of Rift Apart was literally the puzzles. Like, legit. They reminded me of Lego Alpha Team, the old-ass PC game, and clearly not as good port on the Game Boy Color. Those kinds of puzzles are fairly enjoyable, but I do not believe you should be able to skip them, at least on a new game. You should at least either beat the game first, or playing a new game plus. That's my stance on it. Why the hell would you have a feature where you can just skip the puzzles, because why not? I know that Ratchet & Clank 2016 did this, but you actually missed out on a trophy if you did this. And considering the other Ratchet & Clank games that came out after it, the Trespasser puzzles are fucking easy as shit compared to the actual puzzles that came out in later Ratchet & Clank games. If they were to be remade today, they would be completely optional or completely gimped. Mark my fucking words. But I do find it funny that some bits that would be considered skippable weren't. But, like I said, it's not that big of a deal. The puzzles aren't really that bad. They maybe take a couple minutes to get the hang of it, but it does ease your brain a little bit while getting some slight narrative context and all that fun stuff. But speaking of narrative, what is the story of Spider-Man 2? What's the deal with the black shit on Spider-Man? Well, here's the thing. This game introduces a symbiote, which if you're familiar with Spider-Man or anything Marvel-related, you would know what's up. But what I do like about these Spider-Man games, despite me not being the world's biggest Marvel fan, it does take concepts from existing Spider-Man lore and kind of mix them into something that kind of makes it a lot more interesting, which is what the Arkham games did to a point. And even with those games, I know some people may not like the Arkham games for reasons, but at least with the Arkham games, they do mix up the lore and stuff while still keeping it true to the character, but living in the extra spice of life, if you want to call it that. I'm not sure. But it keeps you on your toes. And I'm sure there's various adaptations that have been done before that may resemble the Arkham games or even Insomniac Spider-Man. Even with that aside, you don't have to read up on all the bullshit that a lot of games have issue with. Whether it be other Spider-Man games that literally introduce concepts that you would never know unless you read the comics. There are ways to do these sorts of things with the games, as far as story goes, without having to make people read up on outside information. And then, if people want to be really assholes about it, they can just say, look up at the wiki. Of which there are 3. The whole structure of Spider-Man, as far as story concerned, is that Harry is infected with an illness. I don't know what exactly illness it is. It might be cancer or something. I'm not really sure. There might be something in the lore that knows exactly what it is, but he's basically dying. And Mr. Oscorp wants to keep him alive. And if you saw the post-credit scene, you would know that he kept him in a tube, which shows the symbiote. And we finally get to see this in action. I'll definitely say that it was quite the ruse cruise as far as the game is concerned. You had some funny bits, even with the whole symbiote stuff comes into play. And some people might call it really cliche or whatever, but it was still a good time. Would I binge for it again? Probably not, but I still enjoyed myself regardless. There were parts where I was laughing, there were parts where it made me think, and then there were parts that I was just too busy kicking ass and not having a care in the world, which is how games should be made and played. It's fine for a game to have a decent story, like The Last of Us, even though I don't think it's really anything that special, but whatever, people really like it, whatever. But the biggest problem with The Last of Us is that it's not really a game. It's not. All you're doing is either walking forward and doing half-assed stealth mechanics that nobody fucking likes anymore, gunplay that's just basically Gears of War, but without the one thing that actually makes Gears of War enjoyable, or seeing the sights. That's not gameplay. Something like The Walking Dead can get away with things like that because it's literally a point-and-click game. It'd be like comparing apples to oranges, and in that instance it's not fair. But Spider-Man 2 doesn't have that problem as far as the gameplay is concerned, because you're still playing a game. You still have to try. And even though Insomniac is really pushing it with the so-called accessibility settings, it is simple like how it was in Rift Apart. So I guess that's a way of doing things, so whatever. I didn't really use that many of them. The only thing I really did was just change some of the more annoying things. Mainly with the fall damage, which was pretty funny, though I've only really had that happen once when I already beat the game. And of course, things that people these days can't cope and safe with, so I just changed it to the regulated settings because I'm not a fucking pussy. And of course, the problem, what difficulty you played on? I play on easy difficulty. I don't give a shit. Now, yes, I could challenge myself and play on the ultimate hard difficulty, but wait a minute. The ultimate difficulty is locked. What? Yeah, Mayo. The hardest difficulty is locked. You have to play the game once to unlock it. Oh god. Oh fuck. Spider-Man is not like Doom Eternal. There's no difficulty side to achievements, so I don't give a shit. And it's not a Cuba Strip 2 where the gameplay is actually fun, even if it is limited. But I still enjoy myself. Because some of these games are meant to be experienced. Enjoy. Even if some games are not meant for everyone, you can still find enjoyment in them, even if there's some things that you don't fucking agree with. I guess talk about the stuff in the game that gets a little more spicy, so prepare for some spoilers. As far as the gameplay is concerned, while being able to play as Peter and Miles, the game does fairly mix up a bit on the variety of gameplay that you do, besides the usual puzzles. You're playing as Peter, you're controlling a robotic bee, and you're basically shooting down things, I guess. It's not exactly the most enjoyable thing in the world, but it's short, it's brief, can be skipped, and it's a nice diversion, and it's also a thing you can do later on to unlock another suit. So, fine, whatever. In one part of the game, you get to play as Miles, and you're controlling essentially a spider bot, and you get to play it in first person. You do some self gameplay. It's okay, it's cool, it's fine, it's not that big of a deal. You have to do it though, so stop being a fucking crybaby and just fucking do it. I'm gonna be honest, and I'm gonna be 100% honest, and this is actually low-key spoilers. Every time you play as Mary Jane, not to use the meme, but shit gets real. One of the things that I didn't really like about the Spider-Man game is that whenever you played as Mary Jane, it was just really shitty stealth segments, and it was really fucking undercooked. Like, it was just so fucking undercooked that it wasn't even funny. Insomniac attempts to do that a lot better in this game. Except, every time you play as Mary Jane, there's always something that's serious that goes on. It's like, when you're playing as Mary Jane, not only does it make sense, but also means the plot's about to get much more worse. And yes, they make you play as her in the final mission, which is kind of unorthodox, but whatever. They actually give her a stun gun. Yeah, they actually give her a stun gun. Fucking problem solved. Oh my god, it plays just like The Last of Us. This game sucks. Okay. Unlike other games that do this shit, it actually makes sense. It actually makes fucking sense. Maybe someone may be able to analyze it a little bit better, but I can exactly tell you how it works. In the first instance, Mary Jane is trying to find the information about the Hunters. And in the second case, Mary Jane has to defend herself after a very tired Peter Parker is asleep thanks to the symbiote. And the third instance is the end game. I'm not going to talk about that because that would be absolute spoilers. And during the second half of the second time you play as her, you get to use the stun gun. And then in the final mission, you get a straight up upgrade that lets you shoot the damn things that shoot webs. I'm also very disappointed the game does not do the how do I shot web meme, but I will fucking digress. There is maybe 2 points of the story that I really don't like, and I can tell you exactly what they are. The Black Cat segment, and how the game handles Miles' pacing. I'm going to talk about Black Cat first, because this one genuinely bothered me, and I really have to think, why the hell was this in the game? I'm not going to pull a DSP or whatever the fuck saying that, why is this in the game? It has nothing to do with the game. It's like fucking playing Guilty Gear. No. So at some point in the game, you are tasked with finding Black Cat because she's in danger of being hunted by the hunters. The main character of the group, Craven, is essentially a dude who likes to hunt supervillains, but as to why is actually pretty interesting. We're not going to talk about that. And Black Cat is one of those targets. So what do? You have to find it by finding various clues. Okay, fine, whatever. To my understanding, she was a pretty predominant character in the first Spider-Man game, and she also had her own DLC. So how does Insomniac handle this? Golden Tiger Claw logic bullshit. And no, I'm not kidding. Or if you want a real explanation, they wanted to throw in that ripped apart bullshit. You know, the very thing that all the Sony ponies squeed at the fact that this PS5 is only able to handle this SSD bullshit that turns out to be completely fucking bullshit. And the game itself wasn't even that good. And Rivet is a nothing character. Felicia's trying to find her girlfriend who is never explained or brought up ever again. You basically do a combat encounter with this Shengan Wu motherfucking item that is literally Golden Tiger Claws. And I kid you not, the game literally explains it. Think of where you want to be and you'll be able to go there. Which is some of the most contrived fucking bullshit I've ever seen in a fucking video game. Like, Jesus Christ. I think they put this there intentionally just to rub it in the face of people who think that these games can't be played on PC because that SSD bullshit. It was fairly interesting, but it's the only time in the game you actually have to do it. And then she just warps the appearance of her non-existent girlfriend, and then she just never appears ever again. Fucking kidding me, Insomniac? Like, really? Really? You're gonna have a character like Felicia having a pretty big role in Spider-Man, giving you a suit that's actually useful, I guess, and you give her own DLC, and then you degrade her to a fucking nothing character. And I thought that the Twitter account that tried to justify literal low-tier god logic would be funny. What a fucking society we live in, Jesus Christ. I'm not gonna fucking talk about that shit. The dude's a fucking minor, for God's sake, but I'll digress. Another issue of the main story is that Miles' pacing is really fucking bad. This honestly feels like more of Peter's game than Miles, and I'm going to elaborate why. For whatever reason, around the halfway point, Miles' gameplay is only there to introduce side missions that you'll probably never do unless you want to go for everything in the first run. And then they introduce a character known as Haley, who is a character who speaks in sign language. Which is interesting, except that people like Synthetic Man will find reasons to complain about it because it's a black character and all that shit. And I don't really feel like talking about that because I don't want to get on a political case about this shit. The issue is not that she's black. The issue is not that Miles and his friends are of a different ethnicity or whatever, or that whole fucking Cuban flag bullshit. I don't even know. I don't even care about that shit. I don't think I noticed it, because I was so engrossed in the actual fucking characters, and not the little fucking background details like with fucking Spider-Gwen and that fucking trans flag bullshit. It's fucking nonsense and bullshit. And apparently they're fixing it. My main problem is that Miles' gameplay, especially in terms of narrative, just kind of goes fucking downhill. And then they make the whole thing with Haley. She literally has no main story purposes. There's maybe one line in the entire fucking game that implies that you should do side missions with her. And that's it. And even in the time that I went out of dormant status on the xtwitter.com, apparently there was a mission involving her that involves you doing the very thing that would make Jet Set Radio Future fans be really pissed off about, or just Jet Set Radio fans in general. Or Jet Grind Radio if you're an American otaku. I'm not gonna talk about that because I didn't bother that shit. And after the bullshit with Miles Morales' Spider-Man game having that bullshit in it, I don't even want to fucking talk about that because I am not gonna go on a fucking political rant. I don't want to. That shit is literally too hot to touch. You have a little love interest from Miles. I do find it interesting that she speaks sign language, even though on my playthrough I actually had the auto turned off, so I was kind of confused, but whatever. She'll left the damn audio on, but whatever. You actually got his character okay in the other game, but then you degrade him to fucking side mission introductions. Like, really? There is a literal side mission where you have to find these things for Miles' mom or whatever. And it kind of felt like the game wants you to care about it, except it's just a fucking introduction to a side mission. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, not even Arkham Knight fucked up that bad. It's like, yes, Arkham Knight is known for being the game where the PC port is awful and everyone fucking bitches about the fucking Batmobile. Fuck you was fine. It was just kind of overused a little too much. Just a little bit, but it's a hell of a lot more better than fucking Mary Jane seeking in Spider-Man 2018, right? No? Well, shit. Seriously, though, the pacing with Miles is fucking horrible. Like, legit horrible. Like, it just kind of turns into Peter's game afterwards, and it kind of annoys me, because it's like, you're literally playing through the game as both Peter and Miles, and even though at least Insomniac learned not to do the bullshit that they did with Rift Apart, where they make Ratchet and Rivet literally the same fucking character, and unlike a certain person who got on my case about it, sorry, I sneezed, you can actually switch between them during gameplay, and they have actual functions that isn't just copy fucking paste it. This is why multiverse complexes are bullshit. And you cannot tell me otherwise. This is not me exaggerating. You are just white knighting. Get out of here. I'll give credit to Insomniac for actually fixing this shit, but I will not give him credit for essentially making Miles player 2, and even though he might have some skill abilities that might be useful, he doesn't really have that much story purpose, even though there are points in the story bits you're playing as Spider-Man, Peter's Spider-Man, where Miles is trying to call Peter, but he's too busy trying to be Harry's best friend or whatever the fuck, and it gets really fucking annoying. It's like, dude, you don't have 2 fucking seconds to talk to Miles or whatever, and then Miles just kind of says fuck it and just joins Peter anyway. That shit really fucking annoyed me. Like, come on, really? Miles is obviously trying to contact Peter. He's like, no, I can't do that right now, no. And then the game just kind of completely takes a dump on that shit. It just really pissed me off. Like, legit. It legit pissed me off the game had to go to that such lengths of advertising the game as both, being able to play as both Peter and Miles in a game where it actually gets the old generation versus the new generation in a respectable way, even though there's some things with Miles' characteristics that just kind of seems like pandering, but whatever, at least it's handled mostly respectfully, but I'm not going to get into the specifics of that because I want to be seen as a racist. So yeah, that's my little video about Spider-Man 2, anyway. I like the game. It sucks as a New Game Plus, but as with other Sony games, I'll probably patch it in, no doubt. I just hope it's actually worth playing. And I don't know if I'll probably play the game beyond the stream or maybe 2 that I did, because nobody wants to fucking watch post-game content from a low subscriber number person like myself. But I enjoyed the game, but just know that I am very critical of this shit, and if you think otherwise, you're a fucking idiot. Me talking about this game for 30 minutes or so does not make me a fucking deranged motherfucker. It just means I'm very critical, I think for myself, and that's what people should be. It's not mutually exclusive, but I'll digress. Oh yeah, in case anyone's wondering, yes, I squeed as fuck when I heard the line, "We are Venom," and playing as him in that one mission was fucking awesome. And also, the symbiote part where you get it for the first time, it legit felt like a real power fantasy. And whoo, boy, that shit was more of a fucking power fantasy than fucking Doom Eternal. Get fucked, modern Doom fanboys. That ain't no power fantasy, and this is no game. That was a fucking power fantasy if I ever seen it. That shit, what you call power fantasy, that ain't it, chief. That's no power fantasy, and you're no gentleman. You're a dirty old man.
Go to the sink, take a shower. Dirty old man, take a shower. Take a shower. Go to the sink, take a shower. Dirty old man, take a shower.